So what if the ancient wisdom of India held the key to understanding consciousness? And not just as a product of the brain, but as the very foundation of the universe.
Right, which is a massive claim.
It really is.
Yeah.
Just think about that for a second. I mean, we are so conditioned by modern science to view consciousness as this purely physical phenomenon. Right?
Yeah, completely, like a byproduct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's just a bunch of neurons firing inside our skulls, generating our thoughts the exact same way an engine generates heat. But what if that is completely fundamentally backwards? Because today, on our deep dive, we are looking at a stack of research that really challenges that.
It absolutely shatters it.
Yeah. We've got academic papers by Dr. Krishna V. Joshi exploring the Upanishads. We have these incredible webinars by Dr. Sriyam Sarvatham breaking down Patanjali's ancient texts.
Right.
Plus all these deep dive lectures on the Indian Knowledge System, or IKS. And honestly, it completely upends our modern assumptions about the human mind.
It forces a complete paradigm shift. And what's fascinating here is that this shift is actually gaining surprising traction today.
Wait, really? Like in modern science?
Yeah, if you look at certain theoretical physics and philosophy of mind discussions right now.
Oh, wow.
Because in the Western scientific view, which we usually call materialism, the brain is the factory. It creates the product, which is consciousness.
Okay.
But in the Indian knowledge system, consciousness is not a product of the brain at all. It's an independent, self-luminous principle. It's the literal bedrock of reality.
So the brain doesn't make it?
No, the brain and the mind actually require it just to function.
Okay, I want to make sure we really nail this distinction before we go any further, because it seems like everything else we talk about today rests on this one idea.
It absolutely does.
So if we think about the brain in the Western view, it's essentially a generator, right?
Yeah.
You put fuel in, like, food, oxygen, the gears turn, and it creates electricity. And that electricity is consciousness. So the moment the generator breaks down or runs out of fuel, the electricity is just gone. It ceases to exist.
That is the materialist assumption, yes.
But the IKS view, the ancient yogic view, well, it treats the brain much more like a radio receiver, or maybe to modernize it, a smartphone picking up a Wi-Fi signal.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Because the phone itself isn't generating the internet, right? The signal already exists everywhere, all around us. The device is just channeling it.
Exactly. It's just giving it a specific localized interface.
Right. So if you take a hammer and smash the smartphone to pieces...
You haven't destroyed the internet.
Exactly. You haven't destroyed the Wi-Fi signal. The signal, which in this analogy is pure consciousness, is eternal. It's all-pervading and completely independent of the device that's receiving it.
That analogy captures the essence perfectly, and the texts we're exploring today, specifically the Upanishads, dive incredibly deep into the nature of this signal.
Okay, so where do we start?
Well, before we can explore Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which are basically the ultimate technical manual for upgrading and tuning that radio receiver, we have to understand what it is we are tuning into.
Right, the foundation.
Exactly. The Upanishads describe this consciousness from two different vantage points, using two specific terms, Atman and Brahman.
Yeah, the sources make a really big deal out of these two concepts.
Right.
But reading through Dr. Joshi's academic papers, they seem to be describing the exact same thing, just like from different zoom levels.
That is a brilliant way to put it, actually. Let's look at the localized zoom level first.
Okay.
Atman refers to the individual consciousness. It is the innermost, unchanging essence of a person.
So it's like the soul.
Yes, but without some of the Western religious baggage attached to that word. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad lays out a very specific, almost scientific methodology for discovering this Atman.
Scientific how?
Well, it states that the self must be seen, heard about, reflected upon, and meditated upon.
Which is fascinating because it's not asking you for blind belief.
Not at all.
It's not just saying, hey, take our word for it that you have a soul. Here's a rule book.
Far from it. It's a rigorous empirical process. It's just applied inward instead of outward.
Got it.
First, you hear the teachings, you gather the data. Then, you reflect logically on it. You use your intellect to stress test the concepts to see if it holds up to scrutiny.
So you're supposed to question it.
Yes, but intellectual understanding isn't the finish line. The final step is deep, sustained meditation, which transforms that intellectual theory into a direct, lived realization.
Okay, and when you get to that realization, the texts describe this Atman with a very specific phrase that really stood out to me. They call it self-luminous.
Right.
The self shines by its own light. But I mean, obviously, if I sit in a dark room, I don't start glowing. So we aren't talking about literal photons here.
No, no. We have to step into the realm of epistemology here, the philosophy of how we know things.
Okay, how so?
Think about how you perceive the physical world. If you want to see a chair in a dark room, you need a secondary source of light, right?
Right, like a lamp or sunshine coming through a window.
Exactly. You need the light to bounce off the chair and enter your eye. The chair cannot reveal itself.
Because it's just an object.
Yes. But consciousness operates entirely differently. It doesn't require another consciousness or a secondary light source to be known. It is the very light of awareness that illuminates everything else in your inner world.
It's the light that allows me to, see my own thoughts.
Precisely. It reveals your thoughts, your fluctuating emotions, your sensory inputs.
Oh, that makes sense.
A really profound example the ancient philosophers use is the state of deep, dreamless sleep.
Dreamless sleep.
Yeah. In deep sleep, your mind is completely inactive. There are no thoughts, no dreams, no sensory perceptions.
Right, you're just out cold.
Yet you wake up the next morning and can definitively say, I slept so well, I knew nothing.
Yeah, I say that all the time.
But how do you know you knew nothing?
Oh, wow. Because something was still there, recording the emptiness.
Exactly. That ever-present, witnessing background awareness that never shuts off, even when the mind powers down. That is Atman. That is the self-luminous reality.
So Atman is the individual light, the smartphone receiver picking up the signal.
Yes.
But then we zoom out to the cosmic level, to Brahman.
We zoom out to Brahman. Brahman is the universal consciousness. It is the ultimate, infinite reality of the entire cosmos.
And Dr. Joshi's research highlights a really specific text here, right?
Yes. In the Aitareya Upanishad, there is a profound declaration. It's considered one of the foundational pillars of this whole philosophy, Prajnanan Brahma.
And that translates to?
It translates to consciousness is Brahman.
Which is such a radical departure from how we usually think about the universe. I mean, we're taught that the fundamental building blocks of reality are physical.
Right. Atoms, quarks, dark matter.
Yeah, empty space. But this is suggesting the foundation of the cosmos isn't matter at all. It's awareness.
The implication is that the cosmos is fundamentally, intrinsically conscious.
So the physical universe, like the galaxies, the planets, are physical bodies. They aren't the main event.
No, they are all manifestations that exist within and are pervaded by this infinite consciousness. Matter is derivative. Consciousness is primary.
And this collision of the micro and the macro leads to what might be like the most famous equation in Eastern philosophy.
Oh, definitely.
The sources mention the Chandogya Upanishad, which tells this story of a sage named Uddalaka teaching his son, Svetaketu.
Right, Svetaketu.
And the son is full of intellectual pride. He thinks he knows everything about the world because he's studied so much. And the father imparts this massive truth to humble him, Tat Divamasi. You are that.
It is the ultimate realization of the IKS framework. Tat, or that, refers to Brahman, the infinite, supreme, universal consciousness.
Okay.
Divam refers to the individual essence, the Atman, and Asi establishes the absolute equality between the two.
Tat Tivamasi. You are that.
Yes. It destroys the illusion of separation. It tells you that you are not a fragile, temporary body made of meat and bone. You are not the anxious, chattering mind inside your skull.
Wow.
At the deepest core of your being, your true nature is identical to the infinite cosmic reality.
Okay, I have to jump in here.
Go ahead.
Because conceptually, that sounds beautiful. It's poetic. But practically, in our modern day-to-day lives, it feels completely detached from reality.
How so?
Well, if I am infinite, cosmic, perfectly luminous consciousness, why am I having a minor panic attack because I'm stuck in traffic and going to be 5 minutes late to a Zoom meeting?
Right.
Like, why does an unread message from my boss completely hijack my nervous system for an entire afternoon? If we are the universe, where is the disconnect? Why is the human experience so inherently stressful?
It's a great question, and it's actually the exact catalyst for all of this ancient philosophical inquiry. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. These sages weren't just sitting in caves theorizing about the cosmos for intellectual entertainment. The entire endeavor of yoga and IKS begins with the stark, undeniable reality of human suffering.
So they felt it too.
Yes. They asked the exact same question you just asked. And to understand the mechanics of this suffering, why we feel panic in traffic when we are supposedly infinite, We have to look at Samkhya philosophy.
Samkhya, okay. The research papers point out that Samkhya is basically the metaphysical backbone that Patanjali later builds his entire yoga system on.
It is.
And Samkhya starts by categorizing all this human misery into 3 very specific buckets.
They call it the dukkhatraya, the threefold suffering. The Samkhya texts argue that humanity is constantly bombarded by these 3 types of pain.
And this bombardment is what forces us to actually seek a permanent solution instead of just, distracting ourselves.
Exactly. So the first category is adhyamika. This is suffering that originates from within your own body or mind.
So this would be chronic pain, disease,
Yeah.
but also the internal mental battles.
Right. Yes. Clinical anxiety, depression, or just that nagging sense of existential dread. The internal landscape.
Got it. What's the second one?
The second category is adhidadika. This is suffering inflicted by forces completely outside of human control.
Like what?
Historically, this meant supernatural forces or natural disasters. Earthquakes, hurricanes, sudden cosmic events.
Acts of God, essentially. Things you can't reason with or outrun.
Exactly. And the third is adipatika. This is suffering caused by other living beings or external elements in your immediate environment.
Okay, give me an example of that one.
A mosquito carrying malaria, a dog bite, a car accident, or, in your earlier example, the aggressive email from a coworker.
So Samkhya paints this picture where we're just walking through life, getting hit by internal anxiety, external natural disasters, and the constant friction of dealing with other people.
Right. It's a lot.
And this pain is supposed to wake us up.
Yeah.
But how does Samkhya explain why the pain hurts us if we are this infinite consciousness?
Samkhya diagnoses the root of the problem by making a severe, razor-sharp distinction between 2 fundamental components of reality.
Okay, what are they?
The first is Purusha, and the second is Prakriti. Understanding these 2 is the master key to everything Patanjali teaches.
Let's break those down, because this is where the paradigm shift really happens for you as the listener.
Absolutely. So Purusha is the pure, passive, witnessing consciousness. It is the Atman.
Okay.
It never acts, it never changes, it never gets stressed. It is completely independent, eternal, and stainless. It simply observes.
So it's that self-luminous light we talked about, the background awareness from dreamless sleep.
Yes. But then we have Prakriti. Prakriti is matter, nature, the material world.
Trees, rocks, our physical bodies.
Yes. But here is the radical departure from Western thought. In Samkhya, the mind, the intellect, the ego, and our emotions, they are all classified as Prakriti.
Wait, our minds are matter.
Yes. They are material. Highly refined, subtle matter, but matter nonetheless. And Prakriti is defined by constant activity, constant change, constant fluctuation.
Wait, I really want the listener to absorb this.
Yeah.
Because we are so used to the Cartesian idea, right? I think, therefore I am.
Picard. Yes.
We equate our core identity, our soul, with our intellect and our thoughts. But this ancient system is saying, no, your thoughts, your memories, your ability to reason, that's all just biological machinery.
Exactly. It's nature. It's Prakriti.
So the only true you is the Purusha, the silent watcher sitting behind the machinery.
And that leads to the ultimate diagnosis of human suffering. Suffering is born from a profound case of mistaken identity.
How so?
The Purusha gets entangled with Prakriti. The pure, unchanging observer gets completely absorbed in the chaotic, constantly changing machinery of the mind and body.
Okay, let's build an analogy for this because it's a massive concept. Imagine walking into a movie theater.
I like where this is going.
You sit down in a plush chair, the lights dim, and the projector flickers to life. The movie on the screen is Prakriti, right? It's nature.
Right. It's full of drama, explosions, tragedy, romance, constant movement.
And you, the observer sitting in the chair, you are Purusha. You are perfectly safe, completely unaffected by the light dancing on the screen.
Yes.
But the movie is incredibly well made. The sound design is immersive. The acting is incredible. Within 10 minutes, you completely forget that you are sitting in a dark room in a strip mall.
You get entirely sucked into the plot.
Exactly. When the main character is hanging off a cliff, your heart starts pounding, your palms sweat. When a character dies, you start crying. You have entangled your identity with the shapes of light on a screen.
That is exactly how the ancient texts describe our daily existence. Purusha forgets its true independent nature and starts believing it is the movie.
Oh, wow.
When the mind, which is Prakriti, generates a thought of anger, the consciousness gets confused and says, I am angry.
Instead of, I am observing anger.
Yes. When the physical body feels pain, consciousness says, I am suffering. We identify with the vehicle instead of the passenger.
So this entanglement is the definition of bondage.
It is. Liberation, therefore, is simply the process of remembering you are the watcher in the chair, not the character on the screen.
So, we have the diagnosis. We are trapped in the movie, our heart rate spiking over imaginary stress. How to break the spell?
We need a manual for disentanglement.
And this is where Patanjali enters the picture with the Yoga Sutras.
Yes. If samkhya is the theoretical physics of consciousness, yoga is the applied engineering.
I love that.
Yeah.
Psyche diagnoses the illness. Yoga provides the precise medical treatment.
Exactly. But to appreciate Patanjali's genius, I think we really need to look at his biography and the historical context of his work, because it's crucial to understand what he was actually doing.
Right, because the sources point out something that kind of blew my mind. Patanjali didn't invent yoga.
Not at all.
We see mentions of yogic practices way back in the Rig Veda, which is centuries before him. So who was he, and why is he the name everyone knows?
Well, his genius was not in invention, but in synthesis and codification.
What do you mean?
In ancient India, there wasn't just one yoga. There were countless disparate traditions. You had forest ascetics, wandering monks, competing schools of mind training scattered all over the subcontinent.
Since it was just a chaotic mess of different techniques.
It was sprawling and highly disorganized. It was mostly an oral tradition passed from teacher to student. Patanjali was the ultimate systematizer. He observed this vast ocean of practices, filtered out all the noise, and encoded the absolute essence of it.
Into just 195 sutras,
Yes.
which is insane. But before we get into what those sutras say, we should clarify what a sutra actually is. The word gets thrown around a lot in popular culture today.
It does, but in ancient India, it was a highly strict literary format. The etymology is fascinating. Sutra literally translates to thread.
Like sewing.
Yes, it shares the exact same linguistic root as the English word suture, the thread a surgeon uses to stitch a wound.
Oh, that makes sense.
A sutra weaves together vast, complex philosophical concepts into a tight, manageable fabric. But you couldn't just write a short poem and call it a sutra.
There are rules.
In the IKS tradition, a text had to meet 6 incredibly rigorous, almost mathematical criteria to earn that title.
Right. It was a highly regulated technology for transmitting information orally long before printing presses existed. What are those 6 rules?
The first rule is alpaksharam, which dictates that the text must use the absolute minimum number of words or syllables possible.
So extremely brief.
Yes. You see sutras that don't even have verbs. They're highly compressed data packets designed to be memorized instantly.
Like a zip file of wisdom that a teacher then extracts and explains to the student.
Precisely. The second criterion is asanigdam, meaning it must be completely unambiguous. It cannot be open to artistic interpretation.
No flowery metaphors that can mean 10 different things.
None. It functions like a law of physics. If 2 scholars read the sutra, the logical structure should force them to arrive at the exact same conclusion.
Okay, what's the third?
The third is saravath, meaning it must capture the absolute essence of the topic without getting bogged down in trivialities or exceptions. It hits the bullseye.
Makes sense.
The fourth is vishwatamukam, requiring the text to provide a complete 360-degree view of the subject. It cannot be a partial or specialized fragment of knowledge.
It has to be the theory of everything for that specific domain.
Yes. The fifth rule is astabham, which means 0 filler words.
Wait, 0?
0. In poetry, authors often use filler words just to make the rhythm or rhyme scheme work. A sutra strips all of that away. Every single syllable must carry structural weight. If you remove a letter, the entire meaning collapses.
That is incredibly hard to do.
It is a masterclass in editing. And finally, the sixth is anavadiyam, meaning the statements must be irrefutable, foundational axioms.
When you realize how strict these constraints are, looking at Patanjali's work becomes awe-inspiring. He took all of those chaotic forest ascetic practices and compressed them into this flawless format.
Yes. The sources note you can chant the entire text in about 20 minutes.
He compressed the entire science of human liberation into a 20-minute audio file.
And he organized it beautifully into 4 chapters, or padas.
Let's outline those chapters quickly.
The structure itself is a masterpiece of pedagogy. He begins with the Samadhi Pada, which outlines the ultimate goal and the psychology of the fully absorbed mind.
So he shows you the finish line first so you know what you're working toward.
Exactly. Then comes the Sadhana Pada, the chapter on practice, which details the actual methods and the famous 8 limbs.
Okay.
Next is the Vibhuti Pada, exploring the extraordinary cognitive powers that arise as the mind becomes hyper-focused. And finally, the Kaivalya Pada, the chapter dealing with ultimate freedom and the metaphysical mechanics of liberation.
But here is the statistic from the sources that absolutely floored me.
I think I know which one you mean.
Out of those 195 sutras, which cover the entirety of the yoga system, only 3 of them discuss physical postures.
Yes, 3.
3. And only 6 discuss breathing techniques. If you look at Western yoga culture today, like the magazines, the studios, the apparel, 99% of the focus is on the physical body.
It's completely dominated by it.
Getting the perfect downward dog, stretching your hamstrings. We have completely inverted the ancient manual. If it's not a workout routine, what is yoga actually about?
The modern obsession with asana, the physical postures, is a massive distortion of Patanjali's original intent. To understand what yoga truly is, we have to look at the very first 2 sutras he wrote.
He doesn't waste any time.
Not at all. The first sutra is Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Now begins the discipline of yoga.
It sounds like a standard introduction, but the sources unpack that word anushasanam beautifully.
They do. Shasanam translates to rules, governance, or discipline. But the prefix anu changes it to self-inspired or following along willingly.
Well, interesting.
Patanjali is establishing a psychological baseline right out of the gate. He is saying, no one is forcing you to do this.
Right, you aren't practicing yoga because a priest told you to.
Or out of guilt or societal pressure. You are undertaking this intense discipline voluntarily because you have recognized the suffering in your life, that entanglement in the movie theater, and you desperately want freedom.
It's the recognition that true, lasting happiness requires short-term discomfort.
Exactly.
Like waking up at 5 a.m. to train your mind is uncomfortable. Doom scrolling in bed until 2 a.m. is comfortable in the short term, but ruins your mind in the long term. You had to genuinely want to break your own destructive habits.
Yes. You must be self-inspired to do the hard work. Which brings us to the second sutra, which is arguably the most important sentence in the entire text.
This is the big one.
Sutra 1.2 is the definitive answer to your question about what yoga actually is. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha.
Okay, let's slow down and examine the anatomy of this sutra, because this is the core of the entire deep dive.
Yoga is the state of yoga, or union. Chitta is a complex word. We often translate it as mind, but in the IKS framework, it's the entire inner cognitive instrument.
So it's broader than just intellect.
Much broader. It includes your intellect, your ego, your conscious thoughts, and the massive subconscious repository of your memories and latent impressions.
The whole mental apparatus.
Yes. Next is vritti. Vritti means fluctuations, modifications, whirlpools, or turbulence.
What does that mean in practice?
Every single thought you have, every emotion that spikes, every memory you recall, every sensory input that distracts you, these are all vrittis. They are the constant, restless movements of the chitta.
So the endless chatter, the internal monologue that never shuts up.
Yes. And finally, nirodha. This means the complete stilling, mastery, cessation, or calming of those movements.
Okay, so when you put it all together,
Patanjali's absolute definition of yoga is the complete stilling of the fluctuations of the mind.
so it has nothing to do with touching your toes.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It is the radical transformation of the mind from a state of total chaos to absolute unwavering stillness.
The sources provide an analogy for this that is so visually striking, it immediately makes all these Sanskrit terms click.
The lake analogy.
Yeah, so imagine your mind, the chitta, is a mountain lake. At the very bottom of this lake rests your true self, the Purusha, pure consciousness.
Right. But the surface of this lake is rarely calm. There is a relentless wind blowing across it.
And that wind is what?
That wind represents our desires, our fears, our attachments, and the constant influx of sensory data from the modern world.
And what does wind do to a lake? It whips up waves. It creates ripples and turbulence.
Those waves are the vrittis.
Exactly. Because the surface is constantly churning, the water becomes muddy and distorted. If you look down into the lake, you cannot see the bottom. You cannot see your true nature.
And this is the human predicament. Because we can't see the bottom, we look at the churning, distorted surface, and we identify with it.
Right. We see a broken, chaotic reflection, and we think, that is who I am. I am this chaotic mess of anxiety and desire.
But the practice of yoga, the nirodha, is the process of stopping the wind.
If you can stop the wind of desire and distraction, the waves settle.
The mud sinks to the bottom.
The surface of the lake becomes perfectly flat, like a pane of glass. And when that happens, the water becomes completely transparent. You can look straight through to the bottom and finally see the Purusha.
It is a beautiful and mechanically perfect metaphor. And Dr. Sarvatham, in his webinar, highlights the tragic cost of living with a turbulent lake.
Yeah. He introduces this concept of prana, right? Our vital life energy.
Yes. When our mind is generating thousands of useless fruities a day, replaying an argument in the shower, worrying about an event that hasn't happened yet, refreshing a social media feed, we are burning through massive amounts of prana.
He compared it to a millionaire spending their entire fortune on cheap plastic trinkets.
It's a great comparison. We possess this staggering fortune of cognitive energy, but we squander it on trivialities. Think about the modern attention economy.
Oh, it's brutal.
Our devices and apps are literally engineered by behavioral psychologists to generate fruities. They are designed to keep the wind blowing on the lake so we never experience stillness.
And that constant dissipation of energy just leaves us exhausted, dull, and reactive.
Exactly. So when we practice stilling the mind, we aren't just finding peace, we are conserving a massive amount of energy. We stop buying the trinkets.
And what happens to all that conserved energy?
When that prana is no longer wasted on the churning surface, it pools within the mind. The texts describe a mind that has achieved this stillness as jyotismati luminous, intensely bright and alert.
So it's not just checking out.
No, it isn't a dull, empty void. It is a state of supreme, energized focus that awakens latent intuitive capacities.
Patanjali actually lays out exactly what happens when you achieve this stillness and what happens when you don't, right in the next two sutras, doesn't he?
Yes. Sutra 1.3 states, "Then the seer abides in its own true nature. When the lake is still, the Purusha, the seer rests in its own independent glory. It knows itself. The entanglement with the movie ends."
And Sutra 1.4 gives us the alternative.
At other times, the seer identifies with the mental modifications. When the wind is blowing, consciousness takes the shape of the waves. This is the state of avidya, profound existential ignorance.
Okay, this all makes logical sense. We need to stop the wind. We need to still the lake. But practically speaking, how on earth do you do that?
It's the ultimate challenge.
You can't just yell at a lake to stop rippling. And you can't just command your brain to stop thinking. I mean, the classic example is, if I tell you right now, do not think about a pink elephant, what is the very first thing your brain does?
It generates a massive fruity of a pink elephant.
Exactly. So what are the actual mechanics of transformation in Patanjali's system? How do we actually do this?
Patanjali is deeply practical. He understands the paradox of trying to force the mind into stillness. So he provides two foundational pillars for the entire system, and they must be practiced simultaneously.
God, what are they?
They are abhyasa and vairagya. Think of them as the two wings of a bird. If one wing is weak, the bird flies in circles.
Let's examine the first wing, abhyasa.
Abhyasa translates to practice, but it's an umbrella term that covers every technique, method, and effort you exert to guide the mind toward tranquility.
So it's the active work.
It is the active, engaged component of the discipline. It's the work of sitting down, focusing the breath, returning the attention to a single point.
And the second wing, vairagya.
Vairagya means dispassion, non-attachment, or supreme patience. This is the psychological counterbalance to abhyasa.
How does that balance it out?
If abhyasa is the effort to calm the lake, vairagya is the deep understanding that you cannot force the water to be still by violently beating it with your hands.
Oh, that's good.
You cannot aggressively demand enlightenment. Vairagya is letting go of the desperate grasping for results. You do the practice diligently, but you detach from the immediate outcome.
That is so profound. Beating the water into stillness only creates more waves. You have to step back and let the water settle on its own time.
Exactly.
But Patanjali also knew that people are coming to this practice with vastly different levels of mental chaos, right? So he didn't just give one generic practice.
No, and this is a testament to his psychological brilliance as a systematizer. He mapped out 3 distinct streams of abhyasa, depending on your starting point.
Let's walk through those streams.
He starts by addressing the adepts, those rare individuals who already have a high degree of mental control. For them, he prescribes samadhi yoga, or raja yoga.
And what does that entail?
This stream involves direct, subtle interventions on the mind itself. The sources mention a specific technique for this group called Vishoka Jyotishmati.
Right. Vishoka means sorrowless, and Jyotishmati means luminous.
Yes. The practice involves cultivating and holding a continuous background visualization that the core of your mind is a radiant, glowing, peaceful light.
Just visualizing that light.
For an adept, just holding that subtle intention is enough of an abhyasa to melt away any arising vrudis. They can command their mind to heal their mind.
But let's be honest, for 99% of us, our minds are a chaotic mess. If I try to visualize a sorrowless, luminous light, my brain will immediately interrupt to remind me that I forgot to pay the electric bill.
Yes, exactly.
Directing a chaotic mind to heal a chaotic mind feels like trying to fix a broken hammer by hitting it with itself.
Which is exactly why Patanjali provided the second stream, Kriya Yoga. The great commentator Sage Vyasa explicitly stated that Kriya Yoga is the path for beginners.
Kriya means action, right?
Yes. The underlying logic is incredibly pragmatic. It is vastly easier to exert control over your gross physical body and your speech than it is to control your subtle, racing thoughts.
So you work from the outside in.
Exactly. You start by disciplining your actions.
Right.
You regulate what time you wake up, how you speak to people, what you consume.
Setting up a structure.
By bringing order and rhythm to your physical life, you indirectly create an environment where the mind naturally begins to settle. The external discipline acts as a containment field for the internal chaos.
And that leads naturally into the third, and easily the most famous, stream of practice in Patanjali's manual, Ashtanga Yoga.
Ashtanga literally translates to 8 limbs. It is a comprehensive, holistic architecture for human transformation that systematically works from the most external aspects of our lives all the way to the deepest layers of consciousness.
I want to walk through these 8 limbs, but not just as a list. I want to understand how they actually work to still the lake. The first limb is yama.
Yamas are universal ethical restraints. They deal with how you interact with the external world. Nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, energy conservation, and non-possessiveness.
Let's pause on truthfulness, Satya. From a moral standpoint, we all know lying is bad. But how does Patanjali view it mechanically? Why does lying prevent yoga?
Because lying is a massive drain on prana and a huge generator of vrittis.
How so?
Think about the cognitive load of a lie. When you tell a lie, your brain has to expend energy maintaining that alternate reality.
Right. You have to remember your own lie.
You have to remember who you told, what the specific details were, and constantly monitor your environment to ensure you aren't caught. It creates a perpetual undercurrent of anxiety.
It's literally blowing wind on the lake.
Exactly. Truthfulness isn't just about being a good person. It's about radical cognitive efficiency.
That totally reframes ethics. It's about energy conservation.
Okay, the second limb is niyama. Niyamas are personal observances. How you interact with yourself. Cleanliness, contentment, fiery discipline, self-study, and surrender to a higher principle.
And contentment plays into the lake analogy too, right?
Yes. If you are constantly dissatisfied, always grasping for the next promotion or purchase, that desire is a hurricane on the surface of your mind. Contentment calms the wind.
And then finally, at limb number 3, we arrive at asana, the physical postures.
Yes, placed very specifically after the ethical and personal disciplines are established. And Patanjali's definition of asana is incredibly brief. It must be steady and comfortable.
Wait, that's it?
That's it. The goal of the physical postures isn't acrobatic performance. The goal is to build a physical vessel, a nervous system, and a spine capable of sitting absolutely still for hours without pain distracting the mind.
So if your back aches, your mind will just generate a vritti about the pain.
Exactly. Asana cures the body so it can be forgotten.
Limb 4 is pranayama.
The regulation and expansion of the breath. Modern neuroscience is just now catching up to what yogis knew millennia ago.
Which is what?
The breath is the remote control for the autonomic nervous system. By consciously lengthening and pausing the breath, you signal the vagus nerve to shift the body from sympathetic fight or flight into parasympathetic rest. You are biochemically forcing the lake to calm down.
Limb 5, pratyahara.
This is the turning point. It is the conscious withdrawal of the senses from external objects. Imagine a turtle pulling its limbs inside its shell.
Just shutting off the inputs.
You train the mind to disconnect from the constant bombardment of sights and sounds, turning the spotlight of awareness entirely inward.
And the final 3 limbs are entirely internal. They are the progressive deepening of meditation.
Yes. Limb 6 is dharana. Focused concentration on a single point, binding the mind to one object, like a mantra or the breath.
And then limb 7.
Limb 7 is dhyana. When that concentration becomes an uninterrupted, continuous flow, like oil pouring from a jug.
And the pinnacle, limb 8.
Samadhi. Total absorption, where the ego dissolves, and the distinction between the meditator, the act of meditation, and the object of meditation completely vanishes.
The sources mention that when you combine these 8 limbs, it creates a massive synergy. But I have to push back a bit on behalf of the modern listener.
Sure, go ahead.
Let's say I dedicate an hour every morning to sitting on a cushion, practicing my pranayama and dharana. I am doing the work. does it really matter what I do for the other 23 hours of the day? Like, can I eat a greasy pizza, binge watch a highly stressful true crime documentary until midnight, and still make progress, as long as I do my morning practice?
The sources are unequivocal on this. Your lifestyle off the mat dictates your reality on the mat. A piazza is not a 60-minute hobby. It is a total lifestyle architecture.
Okay, let's look at the pizza example.
Through the lens of Ayurveda and IKS, heavy, processed, stale food is classified as tamasic. It physically induces lethargy, dullness, and heaviness in the nervous system.
So a food coma.
Yes. If you eat a massive pizza before bed, your body works all night to digest it. You wake up with a thick, heavy mind. Achieving neurotocrystalline stillness with a tamasic brain is like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on.
And the true crime documentary.
That is feeding the mind rajasic input, agitation, fear, adrenaline. You are literally paying to have wind blown onto your lake. You cannot spend 23 hours violently churning the water and then expect it to settle perfectly in a 60-minute meditation session.
That is a tough pill to swallow, but it makes absolute mechanical sense. You can't out-meditate a toxic lifestyle.
You really can't.
So Patanjali gives us the streams of practice. But the hallmark of a great manual is that it tells you exactly how to execute the procedure to ensure it doesn't fail.
Yes, the 4 psychological ingredients.
Patanjali provides this specific blueprint of 4 ingredients that must be present for practice to become firmly grounded. If these are active, success is practically guaranteed. But if even one is missing,
the practice will eventually collapse.
Let's go through them. Ingredient number 1, Dirghakala.
Dirghakala translates to prolonged period of time. True transformation requires a staggering long-term commitment.
How long are we talking?
Think about it neurologically. You have spent decades digging deep grooves, samskaras, in yogic terms, of anxiety, reactivity, and distraction into your brain. You cannot expect to pave over 30 years of neural wiring during a weekend yoga retreat in Bali.
Right. It requires dedicated effort spanning years, perhaps decades. It's the ultimate marathon.
Yeah.
You have to settle in for the long haul.
Exactly.
Ingredient number 2 is Nirantharya.
This means consistency without gaps. It means practicing daily. If you go to the gym intensely for 3 days and then skip it for 2 weeks, your muscles atrophy.
The mind is identical.
Completely. If you practice intensely and then take a holiday from your discipline, the turbulence immediately rushes back in. Consistency is the only way to build new, permanent neural pathways of stillness.
Okay, ingredient number 3 is where it gets deeply psychological, and I think this is where a lot of modern self-improvement fails. The ingredient is satkara.
Satkara means practicing with an attitude of honor, reverence, and profound cheerfulness.
Let's talk about the New Year's resolution phenomenon.
Yeah.
We decide we're going to wake up at 5 a.m. to meditate or run. The alarm goes off in the dark and cold.
We've all been there.
We drag ourselves out of bed, internally complaining the entire time. We are gritting our teeth, thinking, I have to do this miserable thing because it's good for me.
And Patanjali is warning that that resentful attitude actively poisons the practice.
Really?
If you approach your discipline with anger or victimhood, you are generating massive negative vrittis at the exact moment you are supposedly trying to calm the mind. It's counterproductive.
So how do we fix it?
Satkara means reframing the narrative. It means realizing, I get to do this. I have the knowledge and the health to pursue my own liberation. You must greet the practice with a genuine internal smile.
That completely changes the biochemical reality of the habit. And finally, the 4th ingredient, acevedo.
Acevedo is an attitude of service. It acts as an antidote to the spiritual ego.
The spiritual ego.
It is very easy to practice yoga to become self-absorbed, to think, look how advanced I am, look at my perfect diet, look how long I can meditate.
Right, using it as a status symbol.
Acevedo shifts the paradigm. You are not practicing to inflate your ego. You are practicing to refine your instrument so that you can serve the world better.
I loved how Dr. Sarvatham explained this in the sources. When you do the hard work of stilling your mind, you stop reacting in anger to your family. You stop projecting your anxieties onto your coworkers.
Exactly.
By becoming the most grounded, cheerful, deeply present version of yourself, you are performing a profound act of service to every single person who interacts with you. Your peace becomes contagious.
It really does. When your practice is fueled by long-term commitment, unbroken consistency, cheerful reverence, and selfless service, it becomes an unshakable foundation. The lake will eventually become still.
So let's fast forward. We've dedicated decades. We've maintained the cheerful discipline. The wind finally dies down. The ripples vanish.
The lake is completely still.
The lake is perfectly, flawlessly still. What is the actual reward? What happens to the human brain when it reaches the finish line of Patanjali's system?
When the mind reaches its highest pinnacle of refinement, a state known as nirvikara samadhi, a radical cognitive shift occurs, which is detailed in Sutra 1.48.
What's the shift?
The mind becomes illuminated with something called Hritamvara prajna.
Let's break those words down.
Prajna translates to profound wisdom or insight. Raja is a massive concept in ancient India. It refers to the absolute, unalterable truth, the cosmic order of reality.
Okay.
So Hritamvara prajna is truth-bearing wisdom. It is a state where consciousness is flooded with the unadulterated reality of the universe.
But I want to clarify, because when we say wisdom in the West, we usually mean accumulating a lot of facts, reading a lot of books, or being really good at logical deduction.
And that is exactly what Hritamvara prajna is not. All of our ordinary knowledge is flawed because it relies on broken instruments.
Broken how?
Our physical senses are easily deceived by optical illusions. Our logic is tainted by our biases, our past traumas, and the limitations of language. When we try to understand reality, we are looking at it through a cracked, dirty lens.
But in deep samadhi, the lens is repaired.
In deep samadhi, the mind is completely silent. It ceases all conceptual processing. It becomes a perfectly polished, flawless mirror.
It stops overthinking.
It no longer tries to construct a model of reality using logic. Instead, it directly, intuitively reflects reality exactly as it is. It is an infallible, direct perception of the universe. You see the absolute distinction between Purusha and Prakriti. You see the bottom of the lake.
And once you see that truth with absolute clarity, the illusion is broken forever. You can't unsee it. You can't go back to believing the movie's real.
Precisely. The ignorance is permanently shattered.
Now, this brings us to what is undoubtedly the most controversial and honestly wildly fascinating part of Patanjali's manual, the third chapter, the Vibhuti Pada.
Ah, yes, the vibhutis.
The sources dive into this, and it's where the text starts talking about the byproducts of this massive mental concentration. It lists vibhutis, which basically translate to superpowers.
Superpowers, yes.
And it's not just talking about having a really good memory. The sutras describe a yogi attaining the ability to read minds, having precise foreknowledge of the exact moment of their own death, and even levitation-like, defying physical gravity.
Yes. This chapter often creates a stumbling block for modern, scientifically minded readers. It seems to veer out of psychology and into fantasy.
So how are we supposed to read this today? I mean, are we talking about ancient X-Men? Did Patanjali actually believe people could float? Or is this a complex metaphor that we are just misinterpreting?
This is a debate that has raged for centuries. Some traditionalists take it absolutely literally, citing that the laws of physics are just subsets of the laws of consciousness, and a master of consciousness can manipulate matter.
And the non-literal view.
From a modern analytical perspective, Dr. Sarvatham offers a highly practical synthesis. Whether literal or metaphorical, Patanjali is pointing to the staggering, almost terrifying, untapped potential of human cognition.
Going back to the millionaire wasting their fortune.
Exactly. If you waste 99% of your cognitive energy on anxiety, scrolling, and internal chatter, your baseline capability is very low.
Right.
But imagine if you could harness 100% of your prana, 100% of your attention, and focus it like a laser beam onto a single object without a microsecond of distraction.
The level of performance you could achieve would look like magic to an ordinary person.
It would look like a superpower. Take mind reading, for example. When your mind is perfectly silent, devoid of all egoic projection and internal noise, your capacity for empathy and subtle observation becomes hyper-attuned.
You'd notice everything.
You can read micro-expressions, body language, and energetic states with such precision that you effectively know exactly what someone is thinking. To a distracted person, that looks like telepathy.
That makes total sense. And the levitation.
Metaphorically, when a yogi achieves absolute mastery and concentration on the physical vehicle, the heaviness, lethargy, and aches of the body vanish from their awareness entirely.
They just don't feel the weight anymore.
The body feels as light as a single cotton fiber floating on the wind. The subjective experience is one of weightlessness. The broader message of the Vibhuti-pada is not to encourage people to try and perform parlor tricks.
It's a testament to the staggering power of a purified consciousness.
Exactly. It's an invitation to realize how much potential we are leaving on the table.
But the fascinating thing is, Patanjali actually warns the practitioner against these superpowers.
Yeah.
They aren't the goal.
No, he considers attachment to these powers to be the final, most dangerous obstacle. If you unlock immense focus and then use it to inflate your ego and show off, you have fallen right back into the movie.
You are entangled in Prakriti again.
Yes, the true goal is beyond power. It is detailed in the final chapter, the Kaivalya Pada.
The culmination of the entire system. Sutra 4.34 describes Kaivalya, absolute freedom. So what are the actual mechanics of this liberation? How does the movie finally end?
To understand the end, we have to go back to Samkhya philosophy. Prakriti nature, the material world, the mind, is driven by three fundamental qualities, known as the gunas.
The gunas, right. What are they?
They are sattva, which is clarity and light, rajas, which is activity, passion, and turbulence, and tamas, which is inertia, heaviness, and darkness.
And everything in the material world is a mixture of these three qualities.
Yes. Throughout our entire evolutionary journey, these gunas are constantly interacting, mutating, and creating the infinite variety of the universe. They project the movie onto the screen for the Purusha to witness.
But Samkhya asks a vital question about all of this. Why does nature put on this show?
Right. What is the purpose of the universe evolving and creating all this drama? The philosophy states that Prakriti puts on this show solely for the benefit of Purusha.
For us.
Nature creates the friction, the pain, and the beauty of life specifically so that consciousness can eventually gain the discrimination to realize it is separate from it.
Wow.
Nature provides the complex playground for consciousness to eventually wake up and claim its independence.
That is a staggering way to view the universe. Every hardship, every joy, every moment of traffic, every sunset. It's all the universe conspiring to give you the exact experiences you need to finally realize you aren't the experiences at all.
Precisely. And when that realization occurs, when the yogi attains Ritambhara Prajna and sees the ultimate truth, the Purusha definitively says, I am not the movie. I am the self-luminous witness.
And once that realization is absolute, the movie stops playing.
The projector turns off. The gunas, the qualities of nature, realize they have fulfilled their cosmic purpose for that specific Purusha. They no longer have anything to teach it.
So what do they do?
They gracefully withdraw. They dissolve back into their unmanifest, dormant source. The mind completely relinquishes its hold over the self. This is Kaivalya.
Absolute freedom.
The pure consciousness, the Purusha, rests entirely in its own infinite, eternal, self-luminous awareness. It is forever free from suffering, free from change, and free from limitation.
It is an absolutely breathtaking philosophical architecture. We started this deep dive looking at the modern default setting. The belief that we are just biological machines, fragile brains trapped in a chaotic physical world, completely at the mercy of algorithms, stress, and external events.
A very limiting view.
And we have walked through a rigorous, deeply scientific, ancient manual that completely dismantles that worldview of victimhood.
It replaces it with a map of ultimate empowerment. It diagnoses the exact mechanics of our anxiety, the entanglement of our pure awareness with the churning machinery of the mind.
And it provides the methodology to fix it.
The wings of Abhyasa and Vairagya. The ethical disciplines, the steadying of the physical body, the breath, and the relentless focus of attention. All to still the wind on the lake.
It's a reminder for you, as you listen to this, that you are not at the mercy of the chatter in your head. You possess the tools to cultivate profound tranquility and unlock an intuitive wisdom that the modern world desperately needs right now.
As a practical bridge to your daily life, I would encourage you to try a simple experiment today.
What's the experiment?
Observe the ripples on your own lake. When a sharp thought or a spike of anxiety arises, maybe triggered by your phone or a conversation, just pause.
Don't immediately react.
Right, don't immediately identify with it. Ask yourself, is this thought serving my deeper consciousness, or is it just wind draining my precious prana? Are you getting lost in the plot of the movie, or can you pull back, take a breath, and remember you are the watcher in the chair?
I love that as a daily practice. Become the watcher. And to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over today, bringing all of this ancient wisdom right to your doorstep. If these sages were right and your true foundational nature is already perfect, already self-luminous, and already completely free of all suffering,
what changes?
Exactly. What would change about how you live your life tomorrow if you fully accepted that you don't need to strive, achieve, or purchase your way to happiness, but simply need to stop the mental noise that's hiding the joy already inside you?